Hi everyone, by the way, on this beautiful spring afternoon, although it's afternoon in the Netherlands. This is where we're situated. We're very happy that Dimitri Shiskin is with us today for this webinar. My name is Rutger Verhoeven. I'm one of the founders and CMO of Smart Octo. Let's wait just a few more seconds for everyone to get in. We've never been so crowded for a webinar. We have over 300 people who signed up. So while they're all coming in and everyone's getting prepared, I think we can start on something super exciting that we have to tell all of you working in the industry. For some reason, you know, maybe you're in newsrooms, or you're in data analytics, or you're a publisher yourself, or whatever. Everybody who is interested in optimizing storytelling should want to pick some of the information that we're about to share. It's all about the user need 2.0 model we created a white paper about. We've released it just about a week ago. And it's, of course, based on all the information we collected from the BBC when they started with it in BBC World Services, I need to say, when they started in 2016. And that's why it's also really, really great that we have Dimitri Shiskin with us, because he knows all of that, you know, when it all started and how it started. Welcome, as I said, to all of you. Really great to have you. Let me quickly tell you how the agenda will look. We will do an introduction to the user needs, and then we have questions about the model. Then we'll talk a little bit about how newsrooms and workflows should be changed or adjusted when you want to work with user needs. And again, we'll have some possibilities to do questions and answers about that. Then we'll have some results of the Dutch regional broadcasters. They're fresh, so they're not in the data chapter because we only got them this week, but they might be interesting to dive into a little bit. And then I'll share some information, not too much, but some information of the tools that Smart Octo can offer when you are thinking about implementing a user need model. And of course, we have some takeaways. We might run out of time, and that's why we will do an additional half hour if you want to stick around for all sorts of questions you might have regarding the user needs model. So whenever you feel like you know, we have some time to spare after the hour, we welcome you to join us in the Q&A there. And Dimitri is also going to stick around, so that's good to know. But maybe also some house rules might be really interesting. If you have any questions, please use the chat or the Q&A, so we can pick up questions and go into that after every little chapter that we've envisioned. We will share links and relevant tips also in the chat during the presentation. The whole webinar is going to be recorded, and we will send it to you afterwards. So if you want to look it back, that's possible. And we will have a handout with additional information as well sent to you at the end. So first of all, to start a little interactive part for all the participants, maybe you can fill this in. So who are you? From what perspective are you here? Are you a content creator, or are you a data scientist? Maybe you're from a marketing department, or product development department, or product manager. Maybe you're an editor. Or something else. So please fill it in, if you will, so that gives us an idea of who we're actually talking to. Well, that's going fairly well. Almost everyone has filled it in. So I see we have a lot of different people. We have about 25% editors, about 15% content creators, 20% data scientists, interesting, and a lot of people from marketing and product development as well, and some other, which is always interesting because you always want to know what is the other, but let's not dive into that too much. So thanks for filling this in. Second question is, what do you actually know about the user need model? Did you actually read the full 12,000 words white paper? Are you familiar with it, but you want to learn more? And that's the reason why you showed up for this webinar. Do you know a thing or two about it, but you want to know a little bit more? Or you're like, what is this snooze repeat model? That's all. But if that's the case, then maybe we should change the subjects of this webinar. But okay, so most of you guys are familiar, as I can see. Some of you know a thing or two, and 15% has read the full white paper. So good to know, really great. That's really nice. And luckily, only one person was wondering what the snooze repeat model was. That was, of course, a very bad joke from the Dutch department. Anyway, I think it's time to start. Oh, I have one more question left here. We have reframed one user need, keep me engaged. And the question is, what was the original BBC version when it was introduced first? What was the original name? Was it Keep Me on Track? Was it Keep Me on Trend? Was it Show Me the Impact? Or was it Let Me Join the Conversation? So what was it, Dimitri?
Well, let's see the results first, huh?
I think we can see that most of the people know the correct answer.
Yeah, Keep Me on Trend, of course.
Yes, it was Keep Me on Trend, and we will explain in one of the chapters that we will dive into in this webinar why we changed it and why it was called Keep Me on Trend and why we've changed it into Keep Me Engaged. So I guess here we are. So thanks again, welcome again, and really good to have you all here and to have the opportunity to explain a little bit about all the stuff that we've done. And I think over to you, Dimitri, to explain something about the user need model 2.0.
Thank you, and very good to see so many people here. Thank you for coming, and thank you for paying attention to what we consider quite an important development in the user needs work. Looking back to 2016, I need to really pay a lot of respect to our audience research department at the BBC, who came up with the whole concept. I was simply a person who loved the idea and started running with it, and then started collecting the other user needs from around the world, and that's where we're now. And we have been thinking with Smart Octo for some time about writing this paper, maybe about a couple of years, because and we will talk about it a little bit later, we have started seeing so many different models appearing here and there. Some of them have been part of the BBC thinking, some of them were individual ones, and we'll talk about that as well. The most important thing for us was to recognize that the framing of storytelling has changed somewhat from about 5-6 years ago. We know that we have 4 basic needs for storytelling, and they all are around either understanding something or knowing something or feeling something. That was the original model. Currently, we have added another axis, a do axis. We have seen so many different articles, even if you go to the BBC News website, which would not have been publishing articles about, help me save money on electricity or help me save money on food. Those types of articles just were not part of the day-to-day editorial workflow. But suddenly we now have seen it not only happening with the BBC, who are actually going to now have in the process of developing their own updated model as well for English and international. So largely the do area, the do axis, directly correlates or maybe is caused by the fact that we know that everybody is into solution journalism as well in the industry, into constructive journalism. So all of that type of thing is important to recognize that these are the things that people are expecting broadcasters and publishers to have. So we created those 4 axes, and then we created the 8 user needs that each 2 of them correlate to one of the 4 axes. The most important thing to recognize is that they can be used to cover almost any story. I'm not saying that they can be used to cover every story, but certainly we have a lot of fun with newsrooms giving them one headline and asking them to come up with 8 type of headlines, although actually 7, because Update Me is almost always there for a top story of the day. So one of the things to say here is that some people might think that this is nothing really new about this, because we are not like completely redoing it. Well, kudos to the BBC original department who have done a great job to creating something, but we want to move the story along based on all other models that we have created, right? And we have seen that those types of things are important to the audience, and we will show you throughout the webinar that data supports this approach as well.
Yeah, really good. And as you saw the whole model taking place in your screen, you saw immediately that we actually added, as Dimitri said, the do action, where we have two new user needs defined: connect me and help me. We will shortly explain them. And as you could see in the beautiful animation, the keep me on trend, we've changed it into keep me engaged. And there is actually a very precise reason why we've plotted them the way we've done it, because we believe that a journalist should check, do I want to write something because my audience wants to know something? And this is where keep me engaged and update me comes in place. Or do I want to write something because my audience wants to understand something, the contextual driven pieces? This is where educate me and give me perspective live. Well, and you can do the trick yourself, right? Now, connect me, maybe this is good for you to explain where connect me and help me are actually for Dimitri.
Well, we all have heard the phrase news you can use, news that something can, you can change in your life somehow. And we thought that for sure, help me is one of the most sought after user needs that that are out there that have not been part of the original BBC model. Those types of articles that you create that satisfy that particular user need help users act on a personal level, so they can do something with this information. So they you can show the impact of events or how the events are in there developing, but actually you need to also show how the audience what can audience do with that new information and how they can adapt their lives or act somehow differently. So this is a clear solution to some of the problems connected with news. That's one thing. A kind of a closest sibling of that user need is connect me, and this is where the audience needs to do something where the needs to be connected to an action, but action that is connected to something bigger than personal. So when the action is connected somehow to society, so it's about connection to experiences, it's about connection to ideas, but also under that big umbrella also sit all the local use needs as well. So when one of the prototypes of that user need was was present in one of the earlier models, which was called help me feel connected to the area where I live. So this is a very big demand for those types of articles, and I always keep saying that I am subscribing to Wimbledon Guardian and I never read it because they don't provide me with content that actually satisfies either help me or connect me user needs, right?
Yeah. And so to go real short, help me is all about personal. Give me some advice, give me some suggestions on how to improve my personal life. What 5 tips can I follow to put solar panels on my rooftop? And the connect me is very much more based on a societal perspective. What can I do to contribute to a bigger thing? And where to sign up, or how to contribute, or whatever, join movements or meet people or new areas of interest. And that's all where connect me comes in place. And then finally, based on the whole model, the keep me engaged, the reason why we've changed it, and we had like a lot of conversation with not only ourselves within the team, but also with clients, how to frame it. And we felt that keep me on trend, but again, it was 2016, was way too much focused on social media only and what people could get from the way news was being covered on social media and why certain memes or hashtags were trending. And we felt like if you want to participate, and that's also why it's on a little bit towards the do axle, if you want to participate in a conversation, you need to look at it in a more broader sense. So it's not just social media only. Of course, yes, it can be, but also what's in the newspapers, what's on public radio, what's in TV shows. It's a much broader way of defining the need and the importance to stay up to date in order to be able to join in the conversation and have, to feel secure at the water cooler moments. And that's what Keep Me Engaged is all about. So different takeout than Update Me, but still very much on the I want to know user needs axle.
Exactly. So what you see in front of you is We hope that it can be described as the mother of all models, or the father of all models, whatever. It's a parent of all models, let me put it this way. So it's you can come up with, you know, a million other named user needs, and of course we will go and show you a big table with all other user needs that we have collected from other models. But those 8 have been put together because they are being seen, and they are being found time and time again in many other areas. Even, for example, you know, just broadly, so you think about this, something happens, you apply a thinking of whether it is a know story, an understand story, or a feel story, or an do story, and then you start going a little bit further because it can be also then opened up by 8 more user needs overall. Ultimately, it's about we believe in this philosophy. We have shown time and time again across so many times that this philosophy works for the audience. Those types of user needs always need to come from the audience, never from the newsroom itself. And we want you to participate in this. We want you to really study all the collections that we put together. We would like, actually, if we haven't referenced your user need model and you have been using one, please let us know. We would love to take it forward. This is just only the beginning.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And the beauty of everything, we understand that there are multiple brand-specific user needs, right? So maybe you're still in the no axle, but you feel like it's not keep me engaged, or it's not update me. To me, it's something else. Maybe it's something like orientate me, as the BBC named it, or maybe it's show me how the world is affected by it, as another brand named it. And this is just all perfect, right? If you feel like you should have your own defined user needs, we encourage you to do that, because it can fit your brand perfectly. It can really help to address what your audience is looking for. But we still believe that it is, in this particular cases, it's based on the no axle, and it's just, how do you say that? It's just an accent of the keep me engaged or update me user needs. So they belong to the family, and we think they're not differently. It's not based on a different major user need, but they can still exist and they can still be relevant. And as Dimitri said, we encourage you to let us know if you have anything else that we should look at, or maybe you believe that your model or your brand specific user need is something we should address. Please let us know. We'll jam it into the form that we have, and we would like to challenge the mother or the father or the parent of all models, because we believe that these 8 are actually the 8 you should focus on. And so we have different ones. For Understand Me, we have Connect Micro to Macro, which is part of Vox. We have Help Me Discover New Ideas, which was in The Atlantic, or Give Me an Edge, which was the Wall Street Journal. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but Give Me an Edge is all about, I want the Wall Street Journal to look at a specific thing, or sometimes columnists or you know, very specific people from a specific perspective should look at that, and that's why I want to go to that brand. That's all fine, but it's all based on context-driven. I want to understand something, and therefore,
I guess ultimately it's about, you know, success on digital comes, and we always use this trajectory slide from, you know, when you are operating on the intersection of 2 axes. One axis is quality, another one is focus. So as long as you basically understand what your focus is, what your niche is, and that you provide the best possible content in that niche, you'll be okay. So inside of this triangle, you've got user needs. That's why they can be different. There is infinite number of niches in the world on digital. And because of that, I love the Vox model, for example. They are unapologetically understanding type of media. So this is about explanatory journalism. So Educate Me and Give Me a Perspective are their core explanatory user needs, but actually they have 6 very specific ones. And if you think about the editorial workflow, nothing gets commissioned without a piece kind of satisfying one of those 6 explanatory user needs.
Yeah. All right. And last one is about the do. We've collected some of the alternatives in the Help Me and Connect Me spheres. We have Motivate Me, which is from the conversation from the UK. We have Help Me Take It Forward from Context, and Make Me Feel Responsible, which is actually an old user need, if you may. It's all about the fashion industry and how you can actually be responsible when you buy new jeans or new clothes, and how to do it, or how to recycle, or everything that's related to that. And Vogue has introduced that. And it's actually a do thing, right? It's solution journalism. It has a sort of help me suggestions on how to be responsible, and therefore we plotted it there. When we published the white paper about a week ago, or maybe 10 days ago, we got a lot of remarks and questions about people, about their specific brand-specific user needs, or maybe we missed out on some of them. Again, please let us know if we are missing out on something, or if you want to contribute. Reach out to our main investigator on this. That's Stefan at smartocto.com, and the link, it will be shared with you. You have an overview of all the models that we've checked. So to be sure that it has been precise work to come to this parent of all models. All right, I guess this is the moment for maybe some questions. And I have actually an interesting question for you, Dimitri, to start off with. What happens if an article meets different user needs at the same time?
Well, it's a really good question. It's like whatever, for example, first of all, let's agree that you probably will never be able to 100% agree on all the user needs instances where if you want to go and select 1,000 stories. We have done it many times, and we know that always there is about like 10% discretionary between people not agreeing on certain things. However, we also, what I always recommend is think about a story that you want to cover in a continuation of different needs. So you can start with an Inspire Me story, and then as a result, you can do a follow-up with a Connect Me story, because by doing an Inspire Me story, you will have collected a lot of information that doesn't really fit an Inspire Me story, but you can do with Connect Me story afterwards. And then off the back of Connect Me, you can actually turn a Connect Me article into a Help Me article later on down the line. Your correspondents will love you for it, because the majority of correspondents are always unhappy with the way editors create the final version of their work. They take stuff out, something doesn't fit in. This is a really good way of doing it. So I would say try to stick a single user need for single article. Don't try to make those Frankenstein stories that basically have a lot of different user needs inside the story, but actually a headline, what does the headline refer to? If the headline is still an Update Me headline, nobody will read it, So the question here is that when you start creating a story, always be aware of what type of user need it will meet, and then kind of be very clear with the audience in the headline what type of user need you're about to open and read, and then kind of try to find the right balance. I'm not going to say that we have a magic or silver bullet here, but all the work that we have done definitely shows us, and we will show you a little bit later, that certain organizations that are very focused about their product market fit and about their place in the market, they do those types of articles and output much, much better.
Yep. Thanks. We have one question here. I think this one should also be addressed to you, Dimitri. The question is, can you deepen the difference between Connect and Engage Me? So please explain what's the difference between the Connect Me user need and the Engage Me user need.
Okay, Engage Me belongs to a do axis. Connect Me belongs to action axis. That's the most basic one. So keep me engaged is something about, something has happened. I don't really feel like writing another Update Me story on that, like straight, a development that probably doesn't warrant an Update Me story for that particular development. But there was a great discussion on the evening TV show about that particular event. So we actually will write about that event, but through the prism or from the lens of some kind of societal discussion about that. So this is still very much an Update Me area, but it's almost like a follow-up to any Update Me story can be done, as reaction goes there, some kind of discussion goes there. It's all also about keeping engaged. When it comes to Connect Me is actually much more about I want to do something about this particular problem. But this problem is not about me personally, otherwise it would be a help me article, but it would be much about like, we are writing something about climate change, we're writing something about cleaning a beach. There could be a collection of local groups, for example, that do something meaningful to tackle a particular problem. So this is a way of basically connecting a person's interest to a particular problem to something that they can do and contribute to society as a whole. And that's why Connect Me natively is probably the closest to the Inspire Me, because they all go hand in hand. One of them is more on the emotional side, another one is more on the actionable side.
Good. Thanks. I hope this was clear. There are a few more questions coming in, and I think, given the time, we only have time to answer one. As I said, if you stick around, we will have another extended half an hour at the end to answer more questions. And we will always answer questions in the handouts or whenever we will be able to find you. The question I would like to address to you, Dimitri, is you address the importance of distinguishing between user needs and formats. And this person, Veronica, is asking for examples of that. Do you have any examples? And why is it important? And what is the difference between formats and user needs?
Well, formats come third when it comes to covering a story. You always start with a story, which is a topic. Then you apply user need to how you want to cover a story. And then you go into an actual kind of tactical execution of the story, right? And the execution can be a listicle, can be a feature, can be a write-up, can be a video, can be a data visualization, can be an explainer, can be a picture, can be anything. So you never forget about user needs and jump immediately into the formats. You always put user needs at the heart of what you're trying to do, and then have kind of an arsenal of different formats that you can apply to it. In a very simple terms, this will be about if you start tracking, and we'll talk about it in a moment, if you start tracking all of those variables like user needs and formats and topics, then suddenly you will be able to create lots and lots of meaningful graphs about the effectiveness of coverage. That's where you will find out that actually a listicle connected to the educate me user need, connecting it to business, that combination is probably 3 times more powerful or effective than a regular write-up and the same user need and the same topic. So it's about basically being much more nuanced about your coverage and being much more specific about executing every story.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. So user needs are about the angle and formats about the form, right? So how does it?
Exactly.
Okay, I think we need to wrap up this particular topic. And again, if there are multiple questions left on this topic, please stick around and we're more than happy to answer them. Let's go into another subject, and that's all about the editor workflow. Although there are also questions about workflow and how to implement the user need model.
Great job that we have it now, right? In this section.
So and it's it's a good question, right? Because we've been asked a lot. So how do you do that? What will happen? And to start off with, journalists, storytellers, content creators, they're not really model users, right? They rather create something than that they check models. It's not per se what editors use or are familiar with. And as one of our clients and one of the people that we quoted in the white paper said, maybe user needs are data in words, right? Maybe it's where art and science actually come together, and where you will understand that data information can be translated into something super valuable, and you can help to optimize your storytelling based on that data. But again, as Roy in this case said, translate it into words and something editors understand and are familiar with. So maybe you can elaborate on this a little bit more, because I think it's not so much a model that should be introduced top down. I think all people within the newsroom should be involved: marketing, product owners, product developers, storytellers, editors-in-chiefs, all the C-level people. I think it's a matter of collaboration, right?
Well, you start small, but at the same time, you have a big vision, right? You need to be very kind of firm on the vision of where you want to go, i.e. introducing user needs in the first place, but you need to be absolutely flexible on the details, right? And this is the old adage, I think, about culture change and change management. It's basically relevant to almost any type of processes inside the newsroom. So if you are a person of power within your organization, if you are responsible for the output, you need to set a direction, and then you need to let kind of people who understand their areas basically to run with it. I always said that at the BBC, when we were introducing this model, it probably took us between maybe 6 to 9 months to really properly bed it down. And by the time I was really tired of hearing from my own voice, it wasn't very pleasant because I was saying exactly the same thing all the time. And a big artifact which I wanted to turn into NFT, but then I realized that obviously as BBC copyright. This is how the original user needs model printout looks like. Look at the quality of it. Why? Because I don't know how many times I would open it up and then put it away, right? So lots and lots of times. So be patient, agree on the model which you would like to use, select maybe one area of the website to turn it into a different type of modeling. Find an editor who really is friendly and who is very open to experiments and new ideas. Do a growth hack based on user needs with them, and then win other people over. I can't tell you how many times this was probably the best way forward and the best way of turning people who doubt and to turn them around. But pushback is always great. But the good thing about user needs is it's never about the subject of what you need to cover, right? I can't care less about what the topics of your newsrooms are. It's just that you might do them differently. That's what it is, right? So always go back maybe 6 months, maybe 3 months, depending on the volumes of your output, and then basically analyze them, create the zero measure, create this kind of a collection of metrics that you will need to move or need to change. And I will guarantee you that creating a backdated review based on user needs of your content will have at least 5 actionable things for your improvement plan. I'm yet to find at least a newsroom where I was not able to find several things that can be really tackled and improved through the user need lens, because everybody is thinking numbers, everybody's thinking topics. Some people think formats, but once you start collecting formats, topics, and user needs together, the insights you're going to get through that are amazing.
Yeah, correct. And I think what's also stated here as actions to take in consideration when you want to implement a user need approach in your newsroom and in your workflow is you need to agree on a model. So we've showed you the parent of all models. We've showed you that there are brand-specific user needs, and we encourage you again to create your own user needs, because that's all fine. And our analytics system, for example, is able to recognize these user needs, and based on that, the 4 axles will be determined. We can tell you pretty accurately what user needs you are using and how they contribute in order to get, conversions, engagement, page views, whatever you're trying to look for. So agreeing on a model is actually something that is really essential. And you can do all sorts of stuff like on-site questionnaires, you can do an email survey, well, you can read by yourself, of course, but you can do polls, social media activity, everything will help in order to understand what user needs should be applied to address the needs of your audience best. And this is always very difficult. We've been in many, many workshops, Dmitry and I, but also separately. And this can be a very interesting exercise for yourself. Try to answer questions like, what do you use? Why do you use us specifically? And this is an answer. This is a question for your audience, of course. Or what do you get from us that you don't get anywhere else? This is how to determine what makes you special, right? Or to make it even more precise, what will actually go wrong for you as an audience if my brand wasn't there anymore? So what are you missing out if my brand's not there anymore?
It's a very uncomfortable question to ask, and in my experience, it's a question that a lot of newsrooms have not asked themselves in so many words. But you also need to ask yourselves, why do so many startups and effective startups, successful startups, are so bothered by their vision statement and mission statement and product market fit? Why? Well, because if they don't know that, they don't really know what they're building. And because majority of our media organizations come from legacy, where basically it was just, you know, a button number one on your TV screen was always your media. It kind of, you didn't really need to think about this. And I'm really grossly oversimplifying things here, but maybe if you go back and you get 10 people who have meaningful roles in your organization, and you ask them to write up a mission statement for your organization, and you will collect 10 different options, and you will see that they will be quite different from each other. And if they are different, then your organization is governed differently, and it's not governed consistently, and it's not being effective about its place in the market and its role. And I really can't recommend highly enough doing those exercises for yourselves.
Yep.
So when it comes to creating a base zero, the analysis, we always say, yes, it is art and science, but basically it's about exporting everything you can on each of the URLs that you have. The more variable you have for each URL, the better, because then you can create all sorts of wonderful graphs and charts. And then you will be creating those types of median views, and always use median rather than averages to make it more consistent. I would just say, do it. It's not fun to tag content retrospectively, I can tell you that. But if you do it, you will thank ourselves for organizing this webinar today, because you will learn so much. And yes, it's it might take 2 weeks of tagging, but what you can get afterwards, like, I don't know, 40 slides, 50 slides of an analysis of your content, because you can basically apply a user needs lens or angle through any type of variable you have for your URLs, right? And you will find so much. So that's to do with base zero benchmark analysis. And once you go into the action plan, again, as I said, the formats and topics and user needs variables are most important ones for when it comes to editorial content. So you probably have been tagging your content already with topics. Some of us probably have already been tagging your content with format variables, and it's great to have some kind of pre-agreed selection of it. But then once you add the user needs, then basically from now on, everything in your system will be automated, almost automated. So it's really great. And that's why, going back to, this can be a big pan newsroom project. You need to go talk to your CMS people, you need to go to talk to your audience development people, audience research people, marketing people, because imagine if you are in sales, imagine having a really great conversation saying, well, the reason why you need to buy out this particular section of your website is this. It brings you a completely different types of audience. They really like that type of content, not the topics, but actually the user need, through the lens of user needs. And advertisers do love those types of conversations.
Yep. So thank you. And the good thing is, based on all of that information you collect, Smart Octo is able to translate everything into words, as has been mentioned before, and we do it with notifications. So we can actually help you to say something like, your politics session benefits a lot from Educate Me pieces brought to you in listicle form because they contribute to the engagement targets you have, or anything that goes like that. And in order to have your tagging in order and to understand better what you need to use in order to address your audience well and have additional information about formats, it will eventually help you to understand better how to create content. So I think we should wrap up this topic. We have some really interesting answers or questions, sorry, and I will pick a few because some of them are linked and they're all very, very interesting. First of all is how has user needs already impacted newsrooms? Well, maybe you can say something about it, Dimitri, but what we've seen happening with all the clients that we support that are doing a user needs approach, there are a lot of stuff that I can tell. Some of them started tagging their content, and on top of that, they've created newsletters. So they had an Educate Me newsletter or a Give Me Perspective newsletter, and people actually subscribed to those newsletters a lot more. Other clients have shown that they lowered the amount of Update Me articles because they didn't contribute to page views nor to engagement levels in the first place. And that saved them a lot of time to actually create much more follow-ups from different user need perspective angles. And it delivered them all sorts of reach, more loyalty, returning visitors, time spent on site, scroll depth on pages, all of those numbers went up. Others actually used user needs in relation to conversion topics. So they were able to detect what user needs actually contribute to the conversion strategy. And they were actually making, just simply said, more money because they introduced the user need model.
Ultimately, guys, it's all about understanding your product market fit and really being clear about what type of content, again, type, right? Not what topics we need to cover, right? Cover whatever you want to cover, but a lot of organizations who don't really recognize the importance of user needs, they create wrong type of content, not wrong type of topics, again, but just wrong type of content. So it's, conversion is a really great example. It's like, we know what people who pay for news, what type of content they value. We know what type of content people who don't pay for news value as well. We can create some really interesting data-based transitions or insights, or that's why it's so important to have all those conversations with your product people involved with your audience development people involved, and marketing and sales.
Correct. Okay, another question. I like to think that when you introduce something new, this is Peter talking, you should often take something away. So the question is, what does the user need approach replace in the newsrooms? And there's a smiley connected to that, of course, I understand. But to answer it seriously, we've seen this a lot, right? And this is maybe also an answer to the question Kirsten is asking. It's not like you start on a Champions League level, right? We can start super slowly, and we start by analyzing what is working for your newsroom and what's not, and what user needs are you using, and which ones are actually contributing to whatever success metric you have defined. And once we know that, and this can be done in 2, 3, 4 weeks maybe. Once we've known that and we've analyzed that, we're actually able to help your newsroom to stop creating stories that just don't matter. And that saves you time right away. And then on top of that, they start to create articles that actually do matter for the audience. Now, and this is where the beauty comes in. People will get energy from that. People will start to be more open to the data results of these stories. They try to understand that, creating follow-up stories is actually something your audience really, really likes, because we as journalists often think that our audience is always, on the same level of information, they understand the same stuff, but it's not. It's not. They visit your website probably only once a week, and then you can consider yourself lucky if they do. And we check news, for all the competition and our own website for 50 times a day. But that's weird people. We're weird people. Regular people have a life, and they often do other things. And then sometimes they check your site. And this is why sticking to a story, writing about it from a different and broader perspective will actually contribute to all the things that you like to see happen within your newsroom. So to go short, Peter, user need approach will help you to stop doing things that don't matter. It saves you time, and you start doing things that do matter, and it will have a lift off, and everything will become spring-like as today. Anything to contribute to that, Dimitri?
No, let's move on. We only have 15 minutes left in the total hour, so we still have an area to cover.
All right, so we have an interactive moment we can do real quick. Which format do you think fits the Connect Me user need the most? As a spoiler is that it's on the poster that you can download on the website. Oh, by the way, we're translating the posters into German and Spanish at the moment. We can use some translation tips here, but we're almost done to have them available for downloading on the website. So if there's any Spanish, Portuguese, or German-speaking people in the house, please reach out, because then that way we can localized.
So what's the result?
Yes, the results, they're coming in at the moment. And the result is, what is the correct answer, Dimitri? It's right here.
Well, I think it could be anything between column and analysis, frankly. I think it's live blog. It's probably harder to do a Connect Me with live blog, because Connect Me is all about kind of recommendations or things that People can go and research in their own time. It's less fleeting. It's something that you probably will be doing less regularly than a live blog, which is kind of something that disappears by the end of the day.
Yeah. So correct, column was the answer, but analysis can also go. Second question, which of the following media type is not a format? Is that an interview, a report, a slideshow, or a video? You can answer this question, Dima.
Well, video is not a format because you can have a lot of formats in video, because obviously interviews can be audio interview, can be video interview, can be text interview. So interview is definitely a format. Report, the same thing. Slideshow, probably yes, because slideshow is a combination of photo and video. Can be video photo gallery, can be photo gallery, but video is definitely not a format. It's a content type. So
yes. Correct, like images or text, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to some data results. As I promised, we will not go into a lot of details because of the time, but what we show now are results that we just collected a few days ago. So this was an analysis of last month. We analyzed over 1,000 URLs for a Dutch regional broadcaster. And what is interesting is that, again, everything we've written down in the data chapter of the white paper is being shown in these results as well. So the first one, and let's get into the graphs straight away. So
well, these are sorry, go.
Sorry, what was the question?
No. I was gonna lead, but go. Sorry.
So here, first of all, you see that we're able to analyze the 4 axes, so contextual, functional, actionable, and emotional. And then we have a breakdown of all the 8 user needs. It's stated 6 categories, but of course it needs to be 8. And here you see what we've seen in all the data that we've collected. And again, it's an answer to your question before, Peter, about what's happening when you introduce it and what is the newsroom gain. You see that in almost all cases, Update Me articles are being overproduced. And or you could frame it differently. All the other user needs are being neglected too much. Whether that is understandable or not, that's what the data shows. And it's a pity because your audience is actually really interested in them. If you take median, in this case, median article reads, you just see that they're actually longing for alternative stories and not so much for Update Me stories. So simple advice, lower the amount of Update Me articles, try to find out which articles don't really contribute and put that time into creating other articles. And also there is a misconception that to write a Give Me Perspective piece or an Educate Me piece will take you so much more time than an Update Me piece that it's just not doable. It's not like every Educate Me piece has to be a long read, right? There is no such thing. But just to explain people a little bit more, try to elaborate on complex matters, will give them more insights on specific news topics, and you will help them. And that is also a Help Me piece. Or an Educate Me piece, sorry. So that's the first insight. Second insight is that contextual user needs, so everything related to context is Educate Me and Give Me Perspective, have the highest attention time for this particular brand, that is. Now you see the top run here, you see the 8 different user needs, and you see that for Educate Me, the attention time is by far the most. It's almost double as much as Update Me, which is interesting to see because that means people actually do like that. Now, reading depth is for Update Me a lot higher, but that's because in most cases, Update Me articles are much more shorter. There are less words related to that, so that doesn't tell you much as a standalone piece, but you see that the contextual, that's in the middle, the contextual user needs, they get the most attention time in general. And so if you want to get your audience loyal and you want to have them spend as much time as possible on your website and you want to seduce them to click on more articles, this is actually, for this brand, a pretty interesting realm to act on. Third insight is that there is a lot of potential for them to explore a little bit more the action axle, because they've only created, and I checked this, the right-hand graph, they only created 43 articles, whereas the median is pretty high, especially if you compare it to the overproduction of Update Me articles. And you see that in this graph as well. It's the second best performing user need, like main user need, the main angle, if you check the median article reads. But they only created 43 articles in the period that we've checked from the data, which was 3 months by the end of 2022. And so you could argue that everything that's related to solution journalism, everything that's related to help me, connect me, will actually be appreciated a lot by this audience. And it's not a strange thing, given the fact that it's a regional broadcaster who can actually help the audience to feel connected to the region, to feel proud of the region, and to really dive into specific things that are relevant in the region. So it is a good advice to see. Then we have, sorry for the typo, functional stories don't engage very well. So we've checked how is it related to engagement, and especially the story here on the right shows you that it's very low. So again, functional is update me and keep me engaged. Especially the update me is the one that is doing the wrong for the results here. And it's good for you to know that we collect that on something that we call CPI, which stands for Content Performance Indicator. It's a metric based on multiple metrics, and together it's defined as CPI engagement, where we score everything that's related to social, sharing, commenting, liking, retweeting, etc. But also, if you do certain things within the article, do you scroll down, you click on things, do you visit other articles as well? And you see that especially the Update Me articles don't perform very well, and it would be wise to lower that amount of articles and then add different ones. For example, Educate Me and Give Me Perspective ones, and that's why we already said that the contextual is interesting to go into. Final and maybe most interesting data visualization, something I will elaborate a little bit more on in the next topic, is what does Smart Octo offer in order to help you understand user needs a lot better. And this is one of the most appreciated tools that we have within the Smart Octo stack. It's called the quadrant model. And what you see here feels like confetti, but it's not. Every single drop refers to a particular article that has been published. And if you take a look at the quadrant model, you have on the horizontal axle, you have everything related to reach, so amount of page views. And on the vertical axle, you have everything related to engagement. So how much is your audience appreciating articles? And that gives you 4 axes. One on the left, low reach, low engagement, the no-go area. One on the right, high reach, low engagement. Let's call them reach champions. Then high engagement, low reach, let's call them niche. And then we have your top stories, high reach, high engagement. And of course, here is where the magic happens. But if you take a look at all the data, it's interesting to see that the pink dots, in this case, Update Me, many of them are placed in the no-go area. So they don't deliver a lot of page views, nor do they deliver a lot of engagement. And those are the ones, again, an answer to your question, Peter, but maybe an answer to a lot of questions people have. This is what you should try and figure out. What is it about? You can click on these things within the tool. You can find out what is the CPI, what was the story about, where was it published, etc., etc. And you can learn about how come that these stories didn't perform, and can we actually maybe stop producing these in order to get more focus on the ones that are here. 2 more things that I'd like to say on the quadrant model. Articles that are here often can benefit from a different distribution strategy. So maybe they dropped off the homepage and should be replaced on the homepage again. Maybe you should add them to the newsletter. Maybe they lack social appearance, and so it could be very wise to have them published to any social channel. we notify you on that, of course. Here you see articles that have high reach. Often they are pushed. Many app-driven referral traffic because of push notification, but they have very low engagement. Here's where notifications from Smart Octo come in, addressing, please create a follow-up. Your audience actually likes this topic, but create it from a different user need angle to explore the topic a little bit more, or enrich it with video or additional rich content to make it more attractive and to stay longer at the topic, because you see that people like it, but they want to engage more and be more attractive. These things here, on top of this one, we've done an additional survey on that. Stories that are in the top of the top quadrant, they contribute to conversion a lot as well. So if you're really into the conversion strategy, we have results from clients to up to 39% more conversion, only focusing on user need related articles in this part of the quadrant model. So super exciting stuff. I guess, and then finally we have social and search, something we've done. And what was really striking for this broadcaster is that Help Me actually brought in the most referral from social and from search, and especially search gave them over 13% of referral traffic, and they only created just a few Help Me articles. So this was also an advice we gave them. Please start creating more Help Me content, because your audience will definitely search for that, and they will find you for that, and they will eventually also love you for that. So I hope these data results show that we can get a lot of interesting information based on just analyzing 1,000 or maybe 1,200 URLs, and start working with your newsroom to optimize anything that is relevant to you. And finally, notifications, because Smart Octo is known for notifications. The notifications that we have could be like, if a story is shared on Facebook and there is a lot of comments on it, and it's above average, then we can actually say something like, share it on Facebook and make sure that you keep the conversation going. We can say, this was such a big story. Maybe you should write a follow-up from a specific user need. Depending on the way you tag your content, we're able to make this even more narrow. If we get more accurate information, we can even tell you to write it from an Educate Me point of view, for example. If a story is well read, we can say create a follow-up. We can say something like Twitter is going crazy. We can tell you to write more Educate Me pieces as premium to optimize your homepage. Anything will go. And the final tool that I wanted to show you is something we've just very recently developed. It's called Goals. And with Goals, you have the opportunity to set a target. Let's say I want to have 2 million page views a day, and then and I have 24 hours to do it. And Smart Octo will start to calculate how far away are you from the target, how many times, how much time do you have left to get it. No, the graphic is not good in quality, but that's because it's a print screen. I agree. It is actually in good quality, so that's a good point there. We see on the right that what stories actually contribute to this specific goal that you filled in, and this becomes really interesting because we are able to combine it with user needs. So we can say, you should write 10 Educate Me pieces this week, or you should write 15 Give Me Perspective pieces today in order to get the engagement growing. And this becomes super actionable, super visible, and it makes it, together with the notifications, very practical for newsrooms to start steering on that. So let's see if we have any. Do you want to add something to this, Dimitri?
Not to this, but I would just say that moving forward, the most important thing that I am looking for this year is seeing new models appearing, and not necessarily news models appearing. So I would love to, if anyone wants to work together on creating a first ever food content model, or I don't know, consumer tech content model, or
sports.
sports. watch this space for that one. But overall, I just feel that this is now the time where we can actually become much more nuanced about those content models, depending on the place in the market, depending on your niche, and all of that. Yes, it is pretty universal, as we said. This is the kind of the parent of all models, the mother and father of all models. But it would be very interesting to go into niches much deeper than that. And I also would say that we have experimented with asking ChatGPT to create suggestions about different user needs for a particular story. I'm not saying that you should, it needs to write it, not, of course not, but it can come up with wonderful research ideas about how you can turn this particular story into a connect me story, this particular idea into a help me, give me perspective, for example, story. So lots of things will happen there. And the quality of algorithms, the quality of understanding the user needs automatically will also grow. This is what I think will happen in the next year or so.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the accuracy of anything that we do will of course go up. And there are very interesting pilots going on with federated learning, where we have combined information and then translated that into an algorithm. What becomes more accurate and will be more easy to recognize user needs and to actually notify on any kind of update. Or follow-ups, sorry. So yeah, lots of interesting stuff will happen. And we will, of course, keep on writing about it. And we're very interested in what you guys are all doing, because the model is there for all of us to use. And if it's helpful to newsrooms, then it's in the end helpful to the audience, and which is a good thing after all, right?
Well, I think that we just need to say that officially we run out of time. We will keep running this webinar. Thank you for being so engaged and coming. So many of you as well. So, but we will continue talking, and we will probably just open it up for questions now, right, Rutger?
Yes, let's do that. So yeah, on my behalf also, thanks a lot for joining. If you have to go, we understand. If you want to stick around, you're more than welcome, because we have plenty of questions in the Q&A. And maybe to start off with a very small thing, Heidi addressed, do you still believe Twitter is a very quality thing to make notifications on? Good point. There are many newsrooms across the globe that still believe that Twitter is relevant. Referral traffic comes a lot from Twitter. So to answer that, yes. Do I personally think Twitter is still, that's not really on topic, but we also have things on TikTok, Instagram, and all the YouTube, whatever social channels. If we can get the real-time data, we're able to notify. So I hope that answers your question. Then we have a question from someone from Phone Arena saying, have you seen newsrooms utilizing the user need model to update trending articles with different angle or follow-ups in the main use case?
Well, again, without going into specifics, I absolutely saw a lot of kind of practical implementation of user needs in real life. It doesn't necessarily need to be about kind of the whole point of user needs is about understanding what's working for you and trying to tell a story through that lens. Like, user needs is nothing but the angles in digital storytelling, right? And the angles basically are pretty much, well, 8 angles which we have found out. And I challenge you to find something that is not in that system. That would be very cool, although you probably will fail. But it still will be very interesting to have the discussion about that. But in our experience, we have worked with many newsrooms who recognize the importance of user needs, and they all have created their own change management processes to change something in their coverage. So it doesn't necessarily need to be trending articles, or it doesn't need to be, I mean, a lot of people would have a specific SEO project specifically for context-related user needs. Some people will have more emotional user needs drive for social media, for example. Some people will say, well, actually, we have not been, as you have seen in these slides, we have not seen we have not producing help me articles enough. You know, those types of things. It's about recognizing what you are underproducing and really going for it.
Yep. I agree. And a very simple example of a story yesterday, what happened is, something was just very minor. There was a kid who fell on a railway track and there was an old man who saved him. It was nothing more than a 112 message, just, a simple thing. And there was video footage because it was regarding, it was from the train tracks. So nothing happened. Luckily, everybody was happy. But then this newsroom, based on everything they've checked, because they have additional question cards we've supplied for them, and we have also some suggestions how to check if particular topics can actually be beneficial to have from a different lens of user needs. They started to track down the person who saved the little guy, and then they created a follow-up as an inspire me story, why the guy did it, how he saved his own life from getting this kid from the railway track, etc., etc. And that story went through the roof, and not only regionally but also nationally. It got picked up, and I don't know, I would not be surprised if this hero will be in some talk show tonight on national television. And so it's just so interesting to see how the user need model opens up editors' eyes to understand that people, once they stumble upon a news article, want to be engaged and stick with that article for a longer period of time. So from a journalistic point of view, you might think the story is told. It's, this is what happened and that's it. So, you've updated your audience, but there's so much more to tell. And people will like it. People will like it if you do that in a quality way, and it pays off, as we could see in this particular example, because page views went up, so video was watched even more, pre-rolls, which is cash, so it was all good, and that's the beauty, I guess, from the way this works.
So I think there are 3 unanswered questions which we need to address. So one of them is from Jenny. How do you recommend doing the tagging? Journalists themselves or editors?
Yeah.
I always would say train a finite group of people, so maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 5, depending on how big a model you want to tag. Spend a day with them, making sure that they're all on the same page in terms of tagging, in terms of what does educate me story look like, what does give me perspective story look like. And then you can kind of unleash them in the open. I would start with editors to make sure that everybody in the executive level are on the same page, and then you kind of drill it down and then make sure that people who will do the tagging actually do it right. One way of doing it is to show them a few examples of pre-tagged stories already from other publishers, and we certainly, we can have a conversation with you about this, of how to do it better. Just to see how people will tag stories that have been pre-tagged by others already. And Google Translate works very well these days, so you will not have a problem working with foreign data sets. So combination, in other words. And then there is a question from Kirsten. This is like 100 steps into the future, but I want to develop a concept of how to inform marketing and product development with the help of the user needs model. Do you have any advice in that regard, or with whom to connect? Well, connect with us, because we do have a lot of experiences of dealing with product people and marketing people specifically through the lens of user needs. Also remember, product people have been operating very successfully the model of jobs to be done. For us, jobs to be done and user needs are the same thing, just kind of the same, different sides of the same coin. Ultimately, the user doesn't really care whether we're talking about user needs or jobs to be done. They just want good content. So I don't think it's 100 steps into the future, actually. I think it's now, frankly. And I'm not sure if we have answered Stefan's question about how do you recommend presenting user needs to reporters, journalists, in a way that encourages them to consider their approach to each story on a day-to-day basis. Well, do it on a section-by-section basis. Don't do it for the whole of the newsroom. Do an exercise of improvement for a particular newsroom. Show them some of the things that can be improved. Show them why they need to be improved. Say, for example, an audience has not been growing for a year. Ask them, why do you think that is? And then show them, well, there are 2 or 3 things that we can improve collectively together. Where, and again, always keep journalism at the heart of it. Like, user needs, as we discussed, this is just another way of storytelling, right? This is digital storytelling angles. And journalists actually react pretty well to it. If you say that Educate Me story does 5 times better than an Update Me story, well, maybe actually don't do an Update Me story next time, because maybe your audience comes to you not for update me stories, but for educate me stories, and people need to hear that.
Yep, I agree. Very good. We have one more question from RTL Croatia, asking, have you thought about training a machine learning model to tag stories instead of journalists on a media source sample? That's a good question, and there are many answers to that question. First of all, the reason why we've created the parent of all models is because we wanted to make a trickle-down visualization. So you have the 4 axes, know, understand, feel, and do. We are able to recognize that pretty accurately. So let's say up to 95% of articles can be tagged. Now, the reason why we've defined all 8 of them related to these 4 axes is because we want to understand what will help your audience and what will help you and your business metrics to actually address in your storytelling better. And this is where, in the first place, manual tagging comes in, because what educates me might inspire someone else or whatever. So that's why we've created the 4 axes to make it clear what it's all about. But we do have, of course, machine learning related algorithms that recognize storytelling, but we also need to recognize language. We need to understand headlines. We need to understand single words that go to specific user needs. And it helps if things are being tagged and trained by the way we feel that it should be, in order to eventually cross match manually flagged articles and the algorithm. And once the accuracy there is optimized, we can actually do it automatically. So I hope that explains a little bit how it works. And there's a lot more to it to answer it. But yes, of course we do it. And yeah, who knows, ChatGPT will solve a whole lot, who knows. But we also have examples of clients that work with it. And if you are willing to find out more about it, or you want to do a pilot with us, of course, we're very open to do it. Let me check if we have more questions left.
I think that's that.
Yes, you think that's that?
I think we went through most of the questions. There is a question about, I think it's a specific question about, is there a difference between how the model can be applied on national and local outlets?
Yes.
And by the way, hi, Ali. Good to hear from you. Of course, there is a difference between applying user needs on a local level and the national level because of the types of stories you do. However, when I did it for World Service, BBC World Service, obviously you're doing national story, national coverage. We didn't really have any local use case at that time. I'm not convinced that an international broadcaster can claim to be able to do local use case as well. I'm not saying it can't be done, but I'm saying that it is going to be very, very tricky given the competition and everything else. But it would be nice to see, like really nice to see if an international broadcaster can come up with really good, successful local examples and local use cases. I would also say that, for example, there is nothing wrong with doing some of the local coverage, but will you be considered the primary resource for that type of coverage? That's another matter.
Okay. Well, I think we're close to wrapping this up, right? Because I think
it's incredible that we have done about 60-75 minutes of the webinar, and we obviously can continue going through so many different examples, but let's respect your time. Thank you for coming, and over to you.
Yes, and thank you, Dimitri, for joining us at this webinar. Thank you all for sticking around and joining us at the webinar. As promised up front, we will send you all the information as well as the video of this webinar. And we like to learn a lot more on the back of this webinar and the publication of the white paper. If you haven't read it, please do, and let us know what you think. It was a big pleasure to be hosting this today on behalf of everyone of Smart Octo and on behalf of you, Dimitri. Thank you, and already a wonderful spring weekend.
Exactly. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.